behind you there? What's going on there on that behind you there in that living room?
Mauricio, muestra, show him your. He has a really nice house. Show it to him, Mauro.
I seeing the flames behind you.
¿Dónde está Mauricio? Where is he? Mauro, ¿estaba conectado?
We lost him.
We lost him.
He said he was having trouble, so.
Yeah. Well, start at 4 o'clock, but it doesn't have to be that. Mira. Nice.
We're at 5. We have 5:01. We have 57 people on already.
Yeah, we can go ahead and start.
Well,
I'm gonna make it.
You want to wait for Mauricio to get back on?
Yeah, I'm gonna start welcoming people in Spanish for just a second until he comes on. All right? He's on actually. Buenas tardes a todos. Gracias por estar con nosotros. Obviamente tenemos otro programa espectacular hoy con Mauricio. Tenemos a McLain Ward. No necesita introducción. Ustedes ya saben quién es. Vamos a hacerle muchas preguntas con Mauricio. Y después tendremos, como siempre, nuestra sección de preguntas que van a ser 3 o 4. ¿Listo? Vamos a darle la bienvenida a ellos. El mismo formato. La pregunta va a estar posteada en los chats para la gente que no habla inglés. Y después la traducción, cada uno, tanto Mauricio como yo, traduce su propia pregunta. ¿Listo? Mauro, are we ready? McLain, welcome. Thank you for being with us. It's a pleasure. A lot of people very excited about having you. Jimmy, how are you doing? Thank you again. You've been a regular on the show, and you're gonna have a lot of insight today also. How are you guys?
Good.
Thank you for having us. Sorry, my Spanish isn't a bit better to join you guys, but we'll navigate it anyway. Great to be here.
That's perfect. What we're gonna do is, well, you know, we're gonna do the questions in English, obviously. So, and then they're posted in Spanish for the people that don't speak in English.
Great.
And then after you guys answer, we're gonna have a little, you know, we're gonna do a little translation for the people. All right. So,
Juan,
Mauro,
before we start,
go ahead.
right off the bat, I want to welcome Susie Sholkoff, one of our top hunter people, top hunter judge. It's nice to see Susie on here.
Great. That's great. Great to have her. Okay, Mauro, good afternoon. How are you doing? We're gonna start right away. Go ahead.
Hi, how are you guys? Is the sound good?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, perfect. So let's start, Juan. Who goes first?
You go. Start it up.
Okay. McLain, I remember when I competed with you as a junior, you were already successful. Now that I look back at that time, you had a lot of pressure because your father was a very successful horse dealer as well. And actually the horses you rode were sale horses, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All dealing horses.
You had the pressure of competing, but also the pressure to show the horses well for a future sale. Do you think this made you a very strong competitor from the beginning? Tell us a little bit about your junior years with your father and so forth.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I rode ponies. Both my parents were professionals, actually. I started with my mother, started doing equitation with Paul Vallier. My parents were divorced when I was very young, when I was 5. And my father, you know, was on the Grand Prix circuit, traveling the world, often on the road. And as a young boy of divorced parents, I figured out that the best way to get to spend some time with my father is if I wanted to ride jumpers. So, you know, I tried to be interested, but I wasn't very good in the beginning. But luckily, with some help, things got better quickly. And when I started riding the jumpers in particular, things started to go a good direction. You know, it's known well enough for people that knew the sport. You know, my father was a hard guy. He was great at what he did, and he was really a genius in many ways of the sport. But you know, it was a strong learning curve, and there was a lot expected, and there was some real difficult moments, and some moments where things could have gone either way because the pressure was pretty intense. But luckily, I had the right personality and character to handle it. And in the end, it probably had a great deal with making me who I was as a person, first and foremost, as a horseman and a rider, and as a competitor.
Ok, Mauro, pequeña traducción.
Sí, la pregunta ya estaba en español, ¿cierto?
Ya está puesto.
Correcto. Listo, ¿no? Me dice McLain que sí, el papá de él efectivamente era un jinete de gran premio. Él creció con su mamá y su papá, los dos estaban en el negocio, se divorciaron a una temprana edad. El papá tenía solo jumpers, todos los caballos eran obviamente de negocio, tenía mucha presión por parte de él, obviamente por muchos sentidos, pero que él tenía la personalidad correcta, adecuada para aceptarlo, y bueno, fue un buen inicio.
Okay. Okay, we're going to go to the second question is mine. And since we're talking about your father, McLain, Barney Ward, obviously everybody knows who he was. Do you think he was a man ahead of his time? He was always on the look for great horses in Europe. And everybody does that now. You know, even us, we go to Europe and we try to look for those great horses. And they even have in Europe now, you know, that they have scouts and they call them that. Do you think he was a man ahead of his time about this?
Well, you know, I think he was ahead of his time in a lot of ways. And like many of us who've lost parents, you know, a few years after they pass away, we realize that maybe in the moment we could have appreciated their knowledge and experience a little more than we did.
Right.
You know, I gained a lot from, you know, working for 20 plus years with my dad, maybe even longer than that, 25 years. And we accomplished great things together. But, you know, I fought him also, as any father and son in the same business. You know, we definitely butted heads. You know, I think in his idea about how and where the sport was going, he certainly had a look into the future. And one of the reasons I think that he was able to do that is, in a way, he was very open-minded. He came from a very humble background where he had to figure things out on his own. And he had a great respect for people of all levels of the sport, whether they be superstars or at the beginning, just getting started. He had the same respect level across the board. And he felt that there was something to be learned from everybody. That's not to say he didn't respect some people more than others, but he had the ability to take a small part of what somebody did that was good and include it in his system, and recognize the benefits of it. As far as the horse trade, I think he saw that the racehorse industry was changing in America in the 60s and 70s. You were going from having, you know, relatively low number of racetracks to a boom, just as we've seen in the show jumping world, where you have multiple levels of horse shows. You have 5-star, 4-star, 3-star, 2-star, national, regional. And he recognized that he wasn't, you know, they weren't going to have the access to the good thoroughbred bloodlines, and also access to those horses when they were still relatively healthy. They were going to go to lesser and smaller competitive markets in the racehorse industry before we would get a look at them for jumping. And Europe was already not only breeding for show jumping for a number of years, but they were refining their breed. They were getting it to be a lighter, quicker horse. And he felt that that's where the business was going. And I actually said in my eulogy of my dad, imagine how brave it was to leave, you know, New York and go to Europe in the mid-70s and buy these horses and import them and believe that there was going to be a market when there was such a mindset that the thoroughbred was the only horse to use for the sport. It was brave. And in a time when dealers probably weren't quite as financially flush as they are today, it was a great risk, and really was the way of the future, as we've seen.
Okay, real quick translation. Dice que sí, que obviamente el papá fue un adelantado a su época en muchos aspectos, no solo en la cuestión de comprar caballos, que eso obviamente lo desarrolló después, pero que siempre fue una persona que primero que todo le ayudó mucho a él. Estuvo junto con McLain más de 20 años trabajando, que obviamente hubo momentos en los que tenían discordias y no se ponían siempre de acuerdo, pero que su padre dentro de su sistema y dentro de su trabajo siempre incluyó, que lo que más lo marcó a él, que siempre respetó a toda la gente, no solo la gente del nivel alto, sino la gente que estaba empezando, y que él trata de emular sus pasos en ese sentido. Y en cuanto a los caballos, dice que así como las carreras de caballos en ese momento en Estados Unidos se usaba mucho pura sangre, y que así como nuestro deporte, también el deporte de las carreras estaba creciendo mucho y iban a tener aquí en Estados Unidos menos acceso a caballos pura sangre, así que en los años 70 se dedicó a ir, dice que en la eulogía, o sea, cuando el padre murió, cuando el papá murió y él habló, siempre hace un homenaje. Él dijo que su papá era una persona muy arriesgada, haber pensado, traído caballos de Europa y pensar que en algún momento iba a haber un mercado como el que hay hoy en día. Okay, Jimmy, I think it's your turn. Jimmy, are you there? Yes.
Yeah, I'm here. McLain, obviously, I know your horses very well. You know, early on, it seemed like you had so much success with so many geldings. You know, you had Orchestra, you had Twist, you had Victor, you had Benetton. Later on, you had Rothschild. It was so many geldings along the way. Now, when we go to that next level, and you talk about your championship wins, you know, you talk about now you had Goldica, the first one really that took you to some of those World Cup finals. You had Sapphire, you have Azure, you have Noche de Ronda now coming up. You had Clinta that you won at the WEG with. Is this a coincidence that now you've had all these steady mares getting you to these championship events, or is that something that you actually have gone after these mares?
Yeah, I mean, I think our nature as human beings is if something works, you follow that trend or you're open-minded to that direction. I think I've always, first and foremost, tried to find a good horse, regardless of color or type or mare or gelding. You know, I want the best horse possible. Early on in my career, I had less options. A lot of those horses that you spoke of were great horses, but it had some issues, whether it had been in the way they went or the rideability or even their soundness. But I saw, and the people around me, including my father, saw qualities that could keep us competitive in the sport. I think, you know, really Sapphire coming in 2000, late 2002, really changed my career. Obviously, it went from having these very good horses that could win big Grand Prix around the world, but possibly at championships came up a little bit short because of the issues that they had somewhere in them. And Sapphire came to me as a young horse, and though she was a little bit green, was a spectacular talent with no baggage. And recently, and we spoke to you guys a little bit, I was watching some videos of her early on, and even though it was raw, you could see the talent. You know, her career lasted a long time. I mean, when we look back, you know, she was at the top of the sport for 8 or 9 years. It was a pretty remarkable thing. You don't see that very often anymore. You know, and then, you know, into the Azures, you know, another great horse came along. But you had a few very good geldings in between that, Rothschild and Antares. And then Clinta and now Noche de Ronda, as well as, you know, supporting horses like Goldica. So I'm a little partial to the mares. I think my program suits the mares. To be perfectly honest, it doesn't suit stallions. I've struggled with stallions. You haven't seen me have very much success with one. So my nature is to want to really be kind with the horses, and I think the mares really respond well to that. When a horse performs well, or they give a lot of themselves, I like to be a little bit easy on them. The stallions have a tendency to take advantage of that, and the mares flourish. So I think the program suits the mares, probably geldings as well. And it's just been a pretty remarkable run, these mares and I have a lot of women around me in general now in my life, so I must do well with them. So.
Okay. Dice McLain a la pregunta que lo primero que busca en un caballo siempre es que sea un buen caballo. No necesariamente hoy en día busca caballos o yeguas, y no lo hace específicamente como hizo la pregunta Jimmy. Que obviamente todos los caballos tienen sus problemas y sus cosas. Habló específicamente de Sapphire, que ahorita le vamos a hacer una pregunta también, que es una yegua que le llegó muy verde y que fue progresando poco a poco y llegó muy lejos y le duró mucho tiempo. Que el programa de él últimamente se ha dado cuenta que le funciona mejor a yeguas. Dice que también castrados, pero que lo que sí le cuesta un poquito y que no lo vemos mucho, que no tiene mucho, son caballos enteros, lo cual yo no había caído en cuenta. Dice que el programa de él es mejor, o él piensa que se le facilita más a las yeguas y a caballos castrados que a enteros, que los enteros a veces se cogen un poquito de ventaja cuando él, que es un poco suave con los caballos, les da un poquito de respiros y de tiempos libres. Okay, Mauro, you want to go ahead?
Yes. You were talking about your father going to Europe in the late 70s, 80s, maybe. So you probably didn't have enough thoroughbreds to ride at that time. And a long time ago, the thoroughbred was the most successful horse in America. There were famous horses like, I don't know, Idle Dice, Jet Run, Touch of Class, For the Moment, Gem Twist, and I can go on and on. Do you think at that time, if the Americans would have taken the time to breed their own bloodlines that were proven as jumpers, do you believe that the US as a country could have been a powerhouse as the Europeans are today with the breeding program, with the thoroughbreds?
You know, I'm going to probably take a little flack for this answer, but no. I think that, want to join me? Hold on, my daughter wants to come join me here.
Of course.
Come on up here. So she's the expert, really. Look, I'm a little bit probably one-sided in answering this question because I grew up really basically only on the warm bloods. I think I rode 2 thoroughbreds, maybe as a junior. But, you know, by that time I was coming up in the sport, the migration to the warm blood had already been made. You out of here already? No. Yeah. Sorry about that. I think that the direction the sport has gone with the particularly delicate style of jumping, super technicality, meeting a horse under tremendous control. When I'm a student of the sport, I love to go back and watch videos and the history of our sport. I get great pleasure in it. I have great respect for the history of our sport. But when I watch even the thoroughbreds that, you know, I grew up hearing were great, a lot of them I don't think would have been competitive at the modern sport. They were a bolder, hotter, quicker horse that typically their trajectory was at the fence. And that style worked in that era. You know, you had these big, wide, solid fences that you could ride forward to, and these horses covered the ground great, and they had great scope, and it worked. For sure, there were exceptions. Gem Twist was an exception. You know, he appeared to be a super careful horse. But for the most part, I think the direction the sport has gone, and the warm blood horse, and now that they've injected so much blood and lightness into those horses in their breeding program, they have the quickness and the lightness of the thoroughbred, but a steadier mind, a more controllable stride, a more controllable trajectory in their jump. I wouldn't say technique, but the time that they take off the ground. The other big issue is the format of the sport in North America would not make it cost effective to produce great numbers of horses. Breeding is a numbers game. You look at Paul Schockmuller, Zangerzide, you know, they're breeding thousands upon thousands of horses to come up with a handful of very good ones. The cost of raising, producing a horse in North America is so great. You can't play a numbers game. So I think that was how the sport was based, how horse shows were based in our country. And I think that would have been very difficult to accomplish. I say to people all the time, if you're going to breed in America, you know, it's a little bit more for pleasure because you appreciate a horse or a particular bloodline, and you gain great pleasure in it. To do it in the scale and the numbers that's been able to be done in Europe, I think would have been very difficult to achieve in America.
Okay, Mauro, go ahead and little translation.
Esto muy bien, voy a tratar de resumir lo que más pueda. Dice que sí, efectivamente, él cuando era joven, de repente montó un par de puras sangres no más. Digamos, la experiencia de él fue con warm bloods, que ya los caballos ya habían cogido el mercado, digámoslo así, ya estaban un poquito adelantados. Básicamente él dice que no, que él cree que los purasangres hoy en día no serían, en términos generales, pues, no serían lo que fueron en ese momento.
Perdimos allá a Mauricio.
Oh, we lost it.
We lost him. Yes?
Well, we lost the sound anyways. I don't hear him.
I'm excited to see we went over 100 participants.
Yes, we did. That's good.
Yeah, we're too.
Mauricio. Okay, I'm going to continue. Voy a seguir con continue with translation a little bit. Dice que los caballos hoy en día, lo que ha criado Europa y lo que ha logrado son caballos que tienen todo, tienen la trayectoria, tienen la ajustabilidad en la batida, que de pronto los caballos de esa época, los purasangres que Mauricio está preguntando como tal en su pregunta, eran un poco más difíciles de manejar en ese sentido y que ve muy difícil de la manera que está criando hoy en día Europa, que los purasangres de esa época hoy en día sean competitivos, que obviamente un caballo como Gem Twist pues es un caballo fuera de la norma de todo, sería bueno en cualquier época y en cualquier cancha del mundo. Jimmy, do you want to add a little bit to that? I know you like thoroughbreds too. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, like McLain said, the breeding here in America, the cost of showing and developing horses is just so over the top. As McLain said, it's a numbers game, and in Europe, they can just develop the horses for a very affordable cost. And I think here, when you go to a show with a young horse, it just gets so costly that even here at our big shows, when you see the young horse classes, they're very lightly attended. People try to save their horses, and maybe for the final where we're jumping for big money, then you will see, you'll see a lot of classes. But it's just so expensive to carry a horse around the country and go to especially you want to take them to the better shows when you're going along and you're jumping the Grand Prix. You want to bring your young horses along, but it's just not cost effective, really. So, every once in a while, even when I have a couple of mares right now that I'm breeding, but I have those mares in Europe with I have a guy that I do all my business with, Willem Greve, and I have those mares in Europe because I can have those babies grow up there. He develops them with a young boy there, take them to a bunch of small shows, and in the end, then we can make a little bit of money. To bring them here to America, it just doesn't make sense. The shows are just too expensive right now.
Okay, now I'm going to let you practice Spanish a little bit and go ahead and translate very shortly like Spanish. How's that?
Me?
Yes.
No, estoy diciendo que aquí para tener los caballos jóvenes aquí en los Estados Unidos es muy caro para llevar los caballos de competencia a competencia. Cuando tienes los caballos buenos, tus caballos de gran premio y quieres traer tus caballos jóvenes, es muy caro. Yo tengo unas cuantas yeguas que sí tengo para cría, pero esas yeguas yo las dejo en Europa. Tengo un amigo muy, muy bueno, se llama Willem Greve, y él tiene unos padrillos muy buenos en Europa. Yo dejo que él tenga las yeguas, él hace la cría, se da los caballos jóvenes a un muchacho que poco a poco los trabaje y cuando estén listos puede traer los caballos aquí y para las competencias o para vender, pero aquí los shows en los Estados Unidos son muy, muy caros para hacer los caballos jóvenes.
Okay. All right, Jimmy, hold on a second. Mauro, ¿ya está en su teléfono? Es que se oye mucha interferencia. Le di por el otro teléfono que me dijo, el de Mateo, pero no se oye. Okay. Okay, we're going to go ahead and continue. McLain, you have said in a couple of interviews, and you even said it early on the show today, that you felt that you were not very good at riding, yourself in your early years of your career. I would like to know, because I competed against you in the North American, the young riders, 1990 or 91, something like that, in Illinois, in Chicago. I don't remember.
Wadsworth, right? Wadsworth.
Yeah, in Wadsworth, that's right. And
yeah, I remember I blew it in the jump off.
I was going to tell you that but you were already star there. I expected you to win. And when I got there with my horse, I said, there's no, I saw, you know, the speed class, I wrote the speed as better as I could. And then I saw you, I was like, this is over, you know, we should go home. And then I think it was Gabby Stalik that won the individual on that. But
yeah, I lost in a jump off.
okay, all right. But then, you know, when did you feel that you were not competitive enough? You know, because this is something that I've always been curious about when you say that you were not that good. When was that? And tell us about it.
Yeah, I think early on ponies, you know, and like a lot of boys in America, you know, our beginning for kids is in the hunter divisions. You know, we have pony hunters. It's a little bit different than Europe or South America, and you know, for boys, you know, there's not a lot of boys riding ponies. Boys are a little more awkward at that age, in their preteen years. Don't have the finesse that the girls have. And you know, you feel a little bit like the odd man out, so to speak. And there was actually kind of a funny story between two judges who were very good friends of my father, and one told the other, you know, tell Barney not to push his kid, he doesn't have much talent. But you know, look, when I became a teenager and I started to ride horses, things definitely did get better quickly. I never considered myself the best talent of my generation coming out of the United States. For me, actually, Nicole Shahinian early on rode circles around me. She was the talent. But I received great opportunities. I had great exposure to a lot of top people directly and indirectly. I had great desire, which grew significantly in my teens. And I had a great work ethic. I wanted to be good. You know, and that was coupled with, you know, Lee McKeever and I, the gentleman who's been my right-hand man. We started and kind of came together when I was 17, which obviously my career was already, you know, underway by then. But that really boosted my efforts, so to speak. Yeah, it kind of took off from there. It wasn't a straight road up, though. There was a lot of ups and downs. There were some missteps along the way, and it's been a challenging journey at times. But in the end, I'm proud of where we got, and I hope we have a few more successes in us still.
I'm sure you do. Dice McLain que el sistema americano tiene ponis, cuando son chiquitos los niños tienen sus ponis, la equitación, toda esta cuestión, y que en ese momento era cuando él se sentía, y realmente era la verdad, son pruebas que son juzgadas, que no estaba dentro de los talentosos, por decirlo así. Es más, que tiene una anécdota que una vez habían dos jueces, eran muy amigos del papá de Barney, y que le dijeron a Barney, mire, ¿sabe qué? Su hijo no debería montar porque pues no tiene talento, así parezca increíble, y que él, por ejemplo, ya cuando fue madurando y fue trabajando más, todavía le faltaba un poquito, que por ejemplo hay una jinete que se llama Nicole Shahinian, que es una jinete muy buena, que vive en California, americana, que ha estado en el equipo americano, saltó los Juegos Mundiales, si no estoy mal, y que él siempre pensó que una persona como ella montaba mejor que él. Que obviamente ha trabajado, que trabajó mucho, porque obviamente no fue una etapa que duró mucho tiempo, y que con trabajo y dedicación logró salir adelante, y pues ya ustedes saben el resultado final y todos los triunfos que tiene, que espera que sean muchos más además. Mauro, ¿estamos ya conectados?
¿Me escucha aquí con el de Mateo, no?
Sí, mejor, hágale por ahí.
Bueno, ok. Espere a ver, yo le...
La número 5.
Okay. Sí, okay, McLain. You talked a little bit about this next question with the mares, and like you were saying before, everybody looks for a specific horse to suit their way of riding. What kind of horse suits you the best? We know that the mares are taking a big part of that, but what kind of horse? A
really good one, huh? Yeah, you know, that makes the sport easier. You know, I've often said I'd rather be the average rider on the best horse than the best rider on the average horse. And I think often the horse is really a huge, especially when you get to the top level of sport where you have, you know, a large group of riders who within range ride in a similar level. The horse is what's going to separate you. You see, you know, a lot in our sport, in sports in general, we talk about being ahead of your time. And that's the hardest thing, in my opinion, to do in sports. And when you see moments where people seem ahead of their time in show jumping, or in dressage for that matter, it's when that rider has a horse that's just a little better than the rest. You know, Rodrigo and Bayou Bay, Meredith and Shutterfly, John Whitaker and Milton. You know, the list goes on, and you see in a moment that these riders had a horse that was just a little better than everybody else's. And when that horse goes away, those people stay at the top of the sport, but they don't dominate in the same way that they did before. You know, I've had success with these mares. I've done well with these kind of rangy, very scopy, big power jumping horses at championships. Azure, Sapphire, now Rhonda. But on the flip side, you know, a horse like Clinta, though she's not built the same, has a lot of similarities to a horse like Gem Twist, you know, super fast off the ground, incredible technique. What we'd say is electric careful. Goldica was also very similar, or Carlos, you know, the quality was 100%, but you had to give the horse a little bit of encouragement. So, you know, I try to look for the best, most talented horse I can find. I look for a horse who seems to understand the sport. You know, I think that's a huge factor. Does the horse understand what we're asking the horse to do? Some horses just get it. Rothschild is a great example of a horse who in the end just got the point. And I try to let those horses be individuals. I try to find ways in my training, in my riding and my program with those horses where I allow them to be the best they can be in their way of going.
Juan,
Okay, thank you.
I have something to add, and I don't know if you want to translate and then add, but whatever.
Jimmy's going to add to the point. He saw me ride ponies and it was terrible.
No, that was the last question.
Let's have Mauricio translate and then you go, Jimmy. How's that?
Ok, básicamente dice que lo importante es tener un muy buen caballo, que tener un caballo fuera de lo normal. Digamos, las yeguas que él usa ahorita son yeguas muy, muy poderosas, yeguas con mucha capacidad, parece que eso se le está acoplando bastante bien. Jinetes muy buenos como Rodrigo con Balubé, tuvo muy buena experiencia porque era definitivamente uno de los mejores caballos que había. Y también dijo que le gustaban caballos que entendieran un poco del deporte, un caballo que entendiera más o menos lo que se le estaba pidiendo, que eso lo tuvo en Rothschild, que es un caballo que él tuvo muy bueno, que desde el principio sintió que era un caballo especial. Básicamente eso, que sean competitivos.
Okay.
Look, I just want, at the end, you touched on Rothschild. It was funny that thought was going through my mind, and you touched on Rothschild at the end. Early on, while you had some great horses, you know, you talk about Omnibus or Orchestra that were, you know, those took a strong ride. Margin for error was 0. You had to be in them the whole time, and for a long time, you got known. Oh, McLain needs it. You know, he wants a horse that he's got to hold and kick and blah blah blah. And people don't realize, you know, Rothschild is the other end of the spectrum there. That was a finesse ride, no spur. Forget about getting him on the bit, leave him on his own, get there, don't pull him off the ground, drop him. It was exactly the opposite of what people think. And I think people are it's a little misconstrued. I think you can ride that strong one, but the way I think when people don't actually watch you and train, and I watch you school, and especially you and I have talked about this a lot, when you're trying a horse, you let the horse just sort of do his thing instead of making the horse do his thing. And I think Rothschild is the perfect example, because that's the horse, in my opinion, and I know you and I joke about it all the time, but I can't think of 3 people in the whole world that could ride that horse over the WEG, you know, around
but what you're saying is exactly, to be honest, what my father was so brilliant about, and where he was such a genius is, you know, ride the horse that you have and ride it in the best way to get the most and the best performance out of that horse. Not every horse has to go the same, and not every horse is going to be their best going in the same way. So you need to recognize how a horse is the most comfortable, how they're going to perform their best, and to try to bring that out in that horse. When I had Omnibus and Orchestra and even Twist du Volant for that point, honestly, those horses could stop. Orchestra in particular didn't have all of the scope. Omnibus didn't have great rideability. Those horses had baggage. They had some bad experiences. So I was required to ride those horses in a strong, more aggressive, more definite way. As I said, Sapphire, things changed. This was a spectacular horse with no baggage and great ability. Could be ridden much lighter and softer and more trusting. And to go fully the other way, a horse like Rothschild, who, again, you dropped, he was super light, delicate in some ways, very temperamental, was another extreme. So you've got to recognize a horse's talents, their strengths and weaknesses, and what it's going to take to get the best performance out of them. And going back to the question of riders, and we touched on this a little bit, there are great riders who come along and have a great success with one or two horses. Then there are great riders. For me, a perfect example is a guy like Nick Skelton or Ludger Beerbaum. For as German as a Ludger Beerbaum can ride at times, he also rode Retina, who was an incredibly delicate, light, sensitive horse. And he changed his way of riding to get the most out of that horse. And I always admired that about Ludger, is he could change from that traditional power Germanic kind of riding style to a light, finesse, French-American style to get the most out of a certain horse. Nick Skelton also, even though he had his unique style, rode a multitude of different types of horses to great success because he would adjust to bring out the best in every horse.
Okay, well, we're going to go to the next question. We're going to translate, but not everything. Otherwise, we're going to lose too much time. We're going to translate only the answers to the questions per se. But that was a great talk, and it took me right to my next question. McLain, I think for me personally, this is a thought that I've always had. There's so much talk about the American way and then the European way, and I think it's getting more, in the world, everything is more of the same now, not as much as say 20 years ago. I think you're the perfect mixture of America, the American way, and then the European way. Did you have a big influence because of your experience in Europe from early on in your career? Is that, could we say that?
Well, absolutely, I had an influence of that, but your point is right on. The world is getting smaller, right? We have communication. Look at this meeting here. We have people in all corners of the world on this. Access to information is traveling in light speed. So I remember people from before would say there was the French style and the Italian style and the German style and the American style. And now when you look at the best in the world, there's one universal style to some degree. Certain things lean. Sorry, Jimmy?
No, this is exactly, I said this exact same thing the other day, how now we're all the same.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, for sure the Germans would lean a little bit, to a stronger, deeper seat. The French still are, you certainly have the directions you lean, but the best riders in the world can do it all now. Marcus Enning can ride as light and as soft and as much in a forward motion as any American or French or Italian, and vice versa. Penelope Laprevost can ride with a deep seat and as strong as Daniel Deusser if she needs to. Easy Madden the same. So I think you see this universal style. I think I was probably on the beginning of that trend, but I also think you saw that in the top Europeans of my generation. Marcus Enning, for example, had already changed and gone from a traditional German dressage base to a much more forward, fluent way of riding. When you see the best riders with the best horses in the world, except for a few exceptions, you see this fluent, forward way, lightness, with the ability to have a deep, strong ride when necessary. I think that's shown itself to be the most successful in competition.
Ok, McLain nos dice la pregunta que le hicimos, que obviamente hoy en día es diferente porque todo el mundo tiene acceso pues a las redes sociales donde se puede ver mucho de Europa y viceversa, que él cree que antes sí, antes habían dos tipos de monta europea la de Estados Unidos, que era parecida a la francesa y a la italiana, y que eso poco a poco homogeneizando. Hoy en día, él cree que cualquier jinete puede montar, salvo algunas excepciones, cualquier tipo de caballo. Pone de ejemplo a Marcus Henning, que es un tipo que puede ir de montar bastante, una monta alemana, por decir así, entre comillas, a una monta mucho más liviana y mucho más hacia adelante. Dice que él cree que eso es una cuestión también generacional, que la generación de él fue la que empezó con eso y volvió a poner a Marcus Henning como un ejemplo de cómo eso fue cambiando, y que él cree que hoy en día la equitación es guardando casi que cada país y cada región su estilo, pero que está un poco más homogenizada. I think the next question is Mauricio's.
Juan,
yeah,
like three-fourths of that didn't come through. I got the gist of it because I speak both languages, but you froze up for most of it.
Go ahead. Oh, shoot, again?
Yeah, I don't know if when you sit more still, it's more clear, but the translation didn't come through very well.
Okay. Básicamente, can you hear me now? Is this good now?
Yeah, you're good there.
Ok, McLain, básicamente, para hacerla corta, dice que obviamente es una cuestión generacional, que antes los jinetes, los países tenían una monta específica más europea, más americana, pero que hoy en día eso se ha homogenizado bastante. Puso a Marcus Henning como un ejemplo de una persona que puede montar de cualquier manera, un poquito más liviana o un poquito más a lo alemán, entre comillas. Mauricio, go ahead.
Yes. For many years now, you've been one of the top riders in the world to be able to win a medal at the Olympics. This year was no exception. You have three wonderful mares. You have Azur, Noche de Ronda, and Clinta. What horses were you thinking of, or what horse were you thinking of taking to the Olympics this year? And what was going to be your preparation up to the Olympics? I'm talking about this year. And now that everything was postponed and changed, what are your plans now?
That's a good question. I don't have a.
And by the way, what happened to Clinta?
Yeah, well, Clinta sustained an injury in Florida last year. We don't know exactly how it happened, but it was a pretty significant injury to her stifle. She didn't have an accident or anything obvious. So that was very frustrating, and we made the decision to give her basically 8 months off. I showed her a little bit lightly in Florida. It was irritated a little bit, the injury, so I backed off again, and she's now back jumping and in work. Obviously, Azure and Rhonda were in good form in Florida. You know, all of those horses have incredible strengths, but are at different places in their careers. Azure, obviously the most experienced, kind of tried and true, but getting a little bit older. Clinta, you know, I've been pretty outspoken about, is the most spectacular jumper I've ever sat on. But like I said, had this injury and a difficult injury to come back from. And then the newest lady on the block, Rhonda, really had an incredible year and had an incredible Florida season. So, you know, all three horses were candidates for the Olympics in Tokyo. I had programs with all three to try to produce them to be ready for that, and felt that the horse that was in the best form at the moment we needed to make the decision was going to go. As far as now the Olympics getting postponed, I'm not sure. I gotta recircle the wagons, which I'm doing, reassess where I think the horses are going to be in a year. A lot's going to change. I've always been a believer that I would take a championships and work backwards from that with a game plan. And that's what I'm in the process of trying to do, looking at those three horses and the possibility of some other options that might come into play with another year plus before the proposed Tokyo Olympics 2021. You know, in sport, as in business and life, you're constantly analyzing, evaluating, making decisions. And, you know, I'm doing the same and going to try to come up with a game plan, not only with those three horses, but what's going to be the best for myself, our team, looking to Tokyo 2021. That's the reality now.
Okay, Mauro, go ahead. Translation, a little bit.
Sí, ahí le pregunté un poquito al final de la yegua Clinta, que tuvo se lesionó a final del año pasado en Wellington. Es una lesión un poquito complicada. Tiene las dos yeguas pues que está compitiendo actualmente. En los gran premios de esta temporada tuvo un muy buen desempeño con noche de ronda. Pues ahora con todo esto es volver a retomar un poco a ver para qué camino toma y mirar a ver cuál sería la mejor opción.
Okay, McLain, I'm going to ask you something that's probably you've been asked, but I haven't heard it. And was winning the World Cup somewhat of an obsession to you? You were so close one time with Victor that you were right there. And then in Geneva, they eliminated you. It was a stupid elimination. Even the FEI had to come apologize publicly to you. Was it an obsession? And how did you feel when you won, especially being in Omaha and being in the States?
Yeah, you know, winning in general has been kind of an obsession for me. I'm very motivated by winning. You know, I've been pretty outspoken that, you know, the reason I train and practice so hard is because I enjoy competing. I enjoy winning. You know, the World Cup finals has been a little bit the girlfriend I could never get in some ways, that knocking. You know, Victor, I had it in hand years ago and blew it. I choked. I was second one time with Sapphire in Las Vegas to Meredith and really felt like we had done everything to win and it just wasn't our day.
Yeah.
You know, Geneva was a very hard moment. In that moment, Sapphire and myself were performing above the level. You know, that was, as I say, that time when you have a horse that's just a little better than everybody else's. And that was in the prime of her career. She had won all 3 major Grand Prix in Palm Beach that year, to be frank, in hand, you know, not even stressing her. She, not to take anything away from the eventual winners of Geneva, because they also performed great. But I just felt that the horse and myself were just in an incredible place. And it would have had to have been a real strike of lightning for things not to have gone our way in that World Cup finals. And, you know, that took a long time to get over. There's no question. I felt not in the grand scheme of life, because what we do is sport. And you know, it's not building a country. It's not saving humanity. But in sport, I really felt that was an injustice. You know, I don't know if it was a situation of, you know, me wanting to get back in some way or revenge. I just wanted to win a World Cup finals. I wanted to be the best I could be. And things came together in Omaha. What a great dream to be able to win it on your home soil after so many years. And a great World Cup finals, a beautifully put on event with a crowd behind me, my family there. I couldn't have asked for a better setting, and you know, maybe in a way that's how it was meant to be.
Okay, can you hear me good? Sometimes it's when we go to translation that I freeze. Okay, Jim?
Juan, I want to add to it when you're done.
Yeah. Okay. Dice que él está obsesionado en general por ganar. La obsesión de él es ganar, que no necesariamente la Copa Mundo, pero que sí quería ganarla. Dice que obviamente la primera vez que estuvo muy cerca fue con un caballo que se llamaba Víctor, iba ganando hasta el último día y dice, básicamente dice, pues la cagué en el último día, en la última ronda y no pude ganar. Dice que hubo otra vez que quedó, am I breaking up?
Yeah.
A little bit.
Okay.
Maybe you should translate, Jimmy, because you can hear you. You're not breaking up.
He's a perfect translator, though. He's so good at it.
Is this better now? Is that better?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, I'm going to try to do this again. And then dice que hubo otra vez que quedó de segundo con Sapphire y que definitivamente la de Ginebra fue una eliminación totalmente injusta, que eso le costó reponerse de eso, que obviamente nosotros es deporte lo que hacemos, no salvamos humanidad ni tenemos otras cosas mucho más difíciles en la vida. Pero que piensa que en Ginebra, sin quitarle nada al que ganó, él estaba en el tope y la yegua estaba saltando muy bien. Y que finalmente cuando ganó con Azur fue muy especial para él, porque estaba su familia, estaba todo en Estados Unidos y que definitivamente fue muy satisfactorio para él. Go ahead, Jimmy, you wanted to add something?
I was going to say, I mean, yeah, Geneva was a shame. I was there. That was not only tough for McLain, for the Americans, but, you know, going back to Vegas, when McLain says that he was second there to Meredith, you know, a lot of people might not realize, and I know McLain and I have talked this a bunch, and he said, you know, it's still not good enough, but that World Cup in Vegas, there were 3 horses. Shutterfly was the eventual winner, but Shutterfly, Sapphire, and Okie Dokie, not one of those 3 horses had a pull down. Like he said, he did everything good enough to win. They did not have a pull down. I don't know that that's ever been done, that 3 horses jumped the entire World Cup final and never have a rail. So, yes, while that wasn't good enough for McLain, he didn't win that. I just think that's an unbelievable feat. I don't know that's ever been done, to have 3 horses that do not have a jump down.
Okay. You want to translate that, Jimmy? A little bit?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Digo que cuando McLain tuvo en Las Vegas y quedó de segundo, claro, para McLain segundo no es bastante bueno. Él quiere ganar o nada, pero como ese campeonato en Vegas, Shutterfly con Meredith Michaels Beerbaum, Sapphire con McLain y el caballo Okie Dokie, durante todas las vueltas no tumbaron ni un palo. Creo que nunca en un campeonato eso ha pasado. En todos los campeonatos, cuando ganan al final, hasta Rodrigo con Balu Bay tumbó un palo, Busy con siempre tumban un palo, pero que 3 caballos pasen tantas vueltas y no toquen un palo es increíble.
You're a very good translator too, Jimmy. That was pretty accurate. And now you were saying, McLain, the question before, that you kept in shape, right? That you work out a lot, but I saw you couldn't do Ken's thing.
No, I cannot do Ken's. And I tried the basketball the other day. I could stand on it, but the squats were nowhere near as pretty as his. So, but I got
that guy is a beast. That's you know.
You should try practicing his riding sometimes. I mean, obviously he's only in the gym.
Okay, Mauro, go ahead. Next question.
I'm a true believer of what I'm going to say a little bit, and I would like to hear from you. The world rankings, do you think they should be as a horse rider combination? What do you think about this?
You know, I'm not sure. I've got to give it more thought. I see warrants on both sides. I really do. I think that there are plus and minuses on both sides. I think that I don't have the answer to that. I think the world ranking in general, because our sport is a combination sport, is never going to be a system that is perfect. You know, there's always going to be some drawbacks. I've thought a lot about it. I could argue both sides. And I'm not 100% clear what is the best way to do it. And I respect the way you feel. I see the argument for a horse rider combination, but I also see valid arguments for a list that shows some depth and strength of a team, so to speak. Yeah, I can't answer that definitively one way or the other.
Okay. Él dice que básicamente no me puede dar una respuesta. Dice que hay partes buenas y hay partes caras de la moneda, por decirlo así, que no está totalmente seguro de esa respuesta.
Okay, we're going to go next. Jimmy, what do you think about that? We talked about the ranking the other day with Eric Nave and then with Rodrigo also, but you never said anything about that. How do you feel about the ranking? How should it be?
What was their answer on the question?
What's that?
Eric and Rodrigo. So what was their feeling on the question?
I think it was actually Eric, and I think Eric said that he was pro. That it should be, horse and rider, right, Mauricio? Am I right?
Yeah, the question was a little bit different, but it was somehow like that. It was another question. It was similar though.
Okay. Jimmy,
I mean, I agree with McLain. I think there's an argument for both sides. Especially if you're a rider that has 1 or 2 top horses, but when you have so many good horses that you're trying to space them out for all the top events, as McLain does, or as a lot of the top riders do, I think there's arguments for both sides.
Okay. All right. We're gonna keep going now. You were McLain. You were fifth at WEG. We were talking about Rothschild before, that horse, and how special that was. And you were fifth in WEG. Being so, can you hear me? Everything is okay?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah. I'm
all right.
Smiling. It was a good memory.
Such a hard horse to ride, or sensitive.
I can answer this question.
Those that we know. How do you think? And this is just we're supposed this is we're never going to be able to prove that. But how do you think he would have fared with the other riders, even though they were either the four of them were awesome riders? Obviously, how do you think would have fared? And on a personal note, I would have loved to see you on the old format of WEG, to see you in the final format. I would have loved to see that. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. I would have also loved to have seen it. And funny enough, I was fifth in WEG in 2014 and didn't ride in the Final Four, and then was fourth in WEG 2018 when they did away with the with the Final Four. So okay. I was always the odd man out. So
okay.
So there's two responses to the question. We'll never know. I think for multiple factors, it would have been tough. I think the fact that Rothschild would have had to stay in the arena with the crowd. The hardest thing about Rothschild was the warm-up. I think to warm up at the end of that arena while standing there with four different people would have been dicey. I wouldn't have wanted to do it. And then the second thing I would say is one of the greatest compliments I ever received in my career came at that WEG. Well, actually, there were two at that WEG. One was from Ludger Beerbaum after the finish of the individual and before the prize giving on the after the 2-rounder. Ludger Beerbaum gave me a great compliment that for him I had won the championships to do that with that horse. And then the next morning when we went into the Final Four riders meeting, the alternate, myself, goes. And I was sitting there a bit dejected and a bit upset. And Jerome Duveldam, who I think is a great champion, a great horseman, a great competitor, just a class act all around. As we're walking out of the meeting, he puts his arm around me and he goes, I know you're a little bit unhappy right now, but I'm very happy. And I thought, oh, this is an odd comment. And he goes, I really didn't want to have to ride your horse. So I took that as a great compliment, and we joke about it from time to time. And, yeah, you never know. These are great horsemen. They're great riders, top riders rise. They step up, they figure things out. And they might have been able to figure him out. But I think the warm-up would have been very difficult.
And then the changing of the saddle and all that, it's been tough. We know we were with Mauricio. We went to Aachen to WEG there, and then it was Shutterfly, and he was going all over the place. They couldn't even put the saddle on him. So I'm going to translate real quick. McLain, la última pregunta que tiene en el chat, dice que él obviamente hubiera querido estar en la final de los 4 y que le pasó 2 veces, que él fue quinto, y que él cree que la parte más difícil de Rothschild era el warm-up, o sea, el paddock como tal, y que él cree que hubiera sido un problema ahí, que definitivamente cree que lo hubieran pasado mal ahí, que él cree que los 4 jinetes hubieran montado, hubieran saltado la pista porque eran jinetes muy buenos. Tuvo 2 anécdotas, una con Ludger, que le dijo ahí en ese campeonato que le dio un complemento, o sea, una felicitación por cómo montaba el caballo, y otra de Jerome Duldam, que fue finalmente el ganador de ese cuadrangular, que le dijo que al otro día que él estaba decepcionado y aburrido porque no había entrado a la final, lo abrazó y le dijo, ¿sabe qué? Yo sé que usted está triste, pero yo estoy muy contento de no tener que montar su caballo. Mauro, you want to go ahead with the next one?
Which one is that? Do you want me to go back to the one I missed?
Yeah, you missed one. Go ahead.
Yeah, McLain, a lot of top riders in America travel a lot to Europe to compete. How come you traveled the least out of all of them? And this year being the Olympic year, did you have planned to go to major shows in Europe or stay in the States?
Yeah, this year, to answer that right off the bat, we were planning on being in Europe quite a bit, most of the summer leading up to Tokyo. Our qualifying system uses a lot of those Nations Cup shows, and we would have been there. Yeah, I find a balance, and I think you have to find a balance for what suits your life. You know, people like Laura Kraut and Lauren Huff, you know, both have, you know, significant others who are English, who have, you know, farms in England, and so they base a fair amount of time of the year in Europe. Um, Ken Farrington, another person who bases in Europe, it's very easy for him to pick up his operation. He's a single guy and park himself in Europe for 8 months, and that works for his setup. I think BZ and I are quite similar. I think we pretty comparable, the amount that we show in Europe. We find a balance. We try to support the major North American events. We have great events in North America, starting with Calgary, Southampton, Devon, some great shows in Mexico now. There's some great events here. So we try to find that balance, go to Europe, go against the best in the world, see what our skills are at, but also balance our businesses, our home life, and our sport here at home.
Mauro?
Ok, sí, dice que este año, que era el año de la Olimpiada, pensaba ir a buenos concursos de Copa de Naciones, que el equipo, pues digamos, era como planeado. Por el otro lado, pues hay jinetes que sí básicamente están radicados en Europa, como Kent, de pronto Laura Kraut. Digamos que Kent le queda muy fácil porque es una persona que vive solo. Él trata de balancear todo esto con concursos en Estados Unidos. Él tiene una familia, tiene clientes, que lo hace muy parecido a Bici, que pues que considera que en Estados Unidos también hay muy buenos concursos, que está Devon, que están otros. Ahora hay concursos en México y pues que lo que trata de buscar básicamente es un balance.
Okay, McLain, you posted a video not long ago on your page. I don't know if it's your official page or your personal one.
Yeah, my Facebook, yeah, personal.
Okay, there you go. Yeah. I saw it, and I saw it was Sapphire, and she looked raw. Obviously, it was 8-year-old. She was doing the first Grand Prix or something like that, and she looked raw.
And like
she looked a little bit shy at times. You know, you had to kick her a couple of times. We know obviously about the end result of Sapphire. But tell us a little bit. You were talking about that a little bit earlier. But tell us about the process, and then the progress of that horse, because I think it's very interesting, especially after seeing that video.
Yeah, you know, like the story is with many good horses, sometimes you fall into them. You know, it's not that you went out to buy a superstar and, you know, you bought the most expensive or the most heavily touted horse. Sapphire was originally supposed to be bought by the Leone family. Peter Leone had tried the horse. For one reason or not, had passed on the horse. She was with François Maty, the mare. Mark Leone had tried the horse, had wanted the horse, but a small family feud ensued. And after a lot of back and forth, I am a very close friend with Mark Leone, as Jimmy is. And he was very frustrated. And he kept talking about this horse, this mare at François Maty's. And finally, one day I asked him, in 2002, I remember it was May of 2002, May or June, maybe June. I said, "Oh, what is this mare you keep talking about?" And this mare's super, but my brother. And I said, "Well, are you going to do anything on the mare?" And he said, "No, we're done." And I said, "Okay." So I called up François and I said, "Is the horse any good?" And yeah, I think the horse is special. And so we bought the horse. We didn't know what color she was. We didn't vet her. I had never seen her.
Really?
Harry Gill and my family bought the horse together. The horse arrived, and she was expensive enough at the time for a 5-year-old. François knew she was a talent. Yeah, I mean, I had high hopes for her. It was obvious she was a pretty spectacular jumper. But she was green. She was spooky, actually, for a big horse. And she defied her type. She looked like a big, kind of slow, old-fashioned horse, but she had a lot of blood, very sensitive, very sharp, and spooky, particularly spooky on the water. But she was smart. She came along quick. She figured it out. She went from basically jumping 1.30 m, 35 at the end of 2002 to jumping that Grand Prix in July of 2003. And then very quickly, we had a pretty strenuous Olympic trial process before Athens, which, you know, she was obviously just turning 9 years old. Both her and BZ Madden's horse Authentic were young. And those horses rose up through that trial process, and then went on to Athens to win a gold medal. So I think the horse was willing to be trained, accepted what you were asking, and understood the game pretty well. So she came along very quickly.
Ok, dice McLain que siempre le parece a él que los caballos buenos aparecen para los jinetes buenos también de una manera inesperada, y que ese fue el caso con Sapphire, que era una yegua que primero vio Peter León, que es un jinete americano que la mayoría de ustedes deben conocer, y empezó a hablar de la yegua, y el hermano también, y por alguna otra razón no la podían comprar, era de François Maty en Bélgica, y que, es más, hubo una pequeña pelea entre los hermanos, y él oía esto y siempre te preguntaba qué caballo era, que finalmente llamó y le dijeron que era muy buena, que era una yegua que tenía mucho potencial. La compró, fue una yegua que tenía 5 años y que no fue barata en ese momento, que sí, que era bastante tímida, especialmente en el agua, y que finalmente terminó siendo lo que todos sabemos. Por ejemplo, da la anécdota de que para la Olimpiada de Atenas era muy nueva, tenía 9 años, así como el caballo de BZ Madden, que es auténtico, y finalmente lograron la medalla de oro. Así que nada, una muy buena historia. Mauricio, seguimos. Go ahead, Mauro.
Yes, I remember I can't recall now that if it was Beijing or Athens at the Olympics, that you made Sapphire go over some flower boxes to win the gold medal as the team competition. This was, of course, for the jump off. Only a very meticulous rider can observe that. You are very strategic in your jump offs. You study every turn, strides that you can leave out, angles, whatever. Do you practice at home all of these? Or now that you have so much practice in the ring that everything falls into place?
We actually jumped the flowers in both Olympics. Jimmy and I were talking about this the other day.
Okay.
We did it in Athens in the jump off for the team competition, and we had walked it actually the distance because we noticed that, we recognized that in our team course walk. And then BZ and I both did it in Hong Kong in the individual jump off, which we'll leave the names out, but there were a few riders who were also in that jump off for the bronze medal who objected to us doing it. You know, the American way and the American, dedication to details, which I'm very proud of in our system, is, you know, trying to leave no stone unturned. Walk the course, know the turns, know the strides. Comes from our equitation background. It's a great discipline. A funny story that Philip Weishaupt, who's a top German rider, loves to tell, is the first time he came to Aachen, he was excited to see me ride. He had grown up kind of watching my career, and he said, I see McLain, you know, this fool, he's walking the wrong course. And then he realized I was walking the jump off, not the first round. So, you know, I think that's an American trait, which is now you see, again, the top riders in the world, the sport becoming more universal, are very, sorry, my battery was getting a little low there, are very detail oriented. And particularly with those big strided horses like a Sapphire and Azure, to beat the quicker, shorter stepped horse, I needed to always know what the least amount of strides I could do on the course was. And that was a great advantage for me, being able to make those bigger, slower types, in theory, be very fast horses. As far as practicing, yeah, from time to time. I can't say we practice a lot of jump offs, but we do practice turns, angles, and once in a while, if we feel things are out of sorts, we absolutely will practice a jump off.
Okay. Juan, me ayuda un poquito ahí, que se me alcanzó a perder un poco la imagen. Él
Sí.
dice que sí, que básicamente hay algo que en la pregunta de pronto no está. Le pregunté que con Sapphire se había saltado un par de cajitas con flores para ganar la medalla de oro. Dice que básicamente lo hizo en 2 Olimpiadas. Fue en Atenas para la de equipos y fue la individual en Beijing con BZ. que sí, que inclusive eso lo caminaron antes de, eso se lo atribuye un poquito al sistema americano de equitation, de que siempre eso se está fomentando en esas categorías. Por el otro lado, ahorita tiene yeguas bastante grandes con unas batidas enormes, entonces tiene que mirar por dónde deja batidas afuera para poder estar encima de los otros, y que de vez en cuando sí practica los ángulos, giros, etcétera, etcétera.
No, ahí está perfecto, Mauro, ahí está perfecto. Solo dejo una anécdota que Philipp Weistop es uno de los mejores jinetes alemanes, lo deben conocer todos ustedes o la mayoría. Una vez estaba en Aachen, en Alemania, y había crecido y era un admirador de McLain, y cuando llegó le dijo, oiga, usted está caminando la pista que no es, y él estaba recorriendo, era el desempate, que eso es una de las
Juan,
cosas.
Juan, before we go on to the next, I think
Yeah.
a great piece of advice I tell young riders, or sometimes we have the conversations, or anybody, there are some superstitions, particularly in Europe. They say, oh, it's bad luck to walk the jump off. And I had a few German friends in particular say this to me. And I said, you know what really is bad luck? Not to know the course. That's bad luck.
Yeah.
I want to add to that. Unfortunately, after McLain's gotten to be known to do this. He sort of ruined it for a lot of us a few places, because like course designers like Conrad Holmfeld, I remember, McLain, you remember this at Harrisburg.
Yeah, he tried to block my turns.
Holmfeld said, no, we're not going to do that. And he wants to put bushes in that when there's a place where you can jump. So a few course designers have gotten a little wise to that and blocked the areas now.
Okay. McLain quiso añadir y quiere dar un consejo a los jinetes jóvenes que me parece muy bueno y muy en punto. Es que hay gente que dice que es mala suerte por alguna razón caminar el recorrido del desempate. Él dice que mala suerte es no saberse la pista, que eso sí es tener mala suerte. Así que recomienda a todos los jinetes que cuando caminen y sepan el desempate en una prueba de desempate posterior, lo caminen y lo sepan bien. Okay, McLain, I know years ago, started a trend of the core of the American team, and it's been, even though there's been a lot of riders on it, but Laura Crowd, Busy, Kent, even though he's a little younger, even Lauren Hoff, and you, that's been more or less the core of the American team. Do you think, like I said, it's not the only riders that have been there and that have won important things, but give me specific names. Don't tell me I think it's the American equitation is in a great shape, but I want 4, even 5 teams that got to be reserved of young riders that could be that the replacement of that core team of today.
Yeah, I mean, this is been a topic of conversation for as long as there's been teams, right? Where are the next riders coming from? Reality is a rider's career isn't that short. We have the blessing of a pretty lengthy career, so you don't necessarily need 20 new riders every 5 years like you would in other sports. It doesn't have to regenerate itself quite as quickly. And what a rider loses as they get a little bit older, maybe physically, they gain mentally, and there's a balance. Saying that, I think riders' careers as the sport gets better and better, riders' careers at the top are going to get shorter, like other sports, because you're just not, the access of information. Riders are going to get better faster. Younger riders are going to get better faster. But, when I look to our country, obviously, I'm very proud of 2 students in particular I work with, Adrian Sternlick, who already went to the World Championships, Lily Keenan, who hasn't been to major championships yet, but is an incredible talent and always has been. There's always people coming through, and it's like horses. You see some young talents and you think they're going to go all the way, and sometimes they fall by the wayside for reasons outside of their talent, their natural talent. And then one you don't think is quite as good finds a way. You wouldn't have picked Ken Farrington out probably when he was 14 years old, but he found a way to put it together. The Porter boys are doing a very nice job in our country. They're coming along. They've got a great teacher in Jerome Duveldam. Trying to think specifically of some real talents. Michael Hughes was a great talent. He went to work in Europe for a number of years.
Ryan,
I hope.
right?
Sorry.
Ryan Mulgrew.
Yeah, Byron Mulgrew. That's probably the most obvious right now, you know, and I don't even think of him as a young rider, really. He's doing the sport so well, but he's 18, 19 years of age. So there's always going to be a few that'll come through, get on teams, and get in the mix. That's not really a topic that concerns me. I think I'm more worried about where's the best horses coming from to field our team than where those riders are coming from.
Ok, dice que obviamente la carrera de todos los jinetes pues es más larga que la de...
You there, Juan?
Yeah, can you hear me? Can you hear me there? Oh,
yeah, we can hear you. There you go.
Better now?
Yeah.
Sí.
Ok, dice McLain que obviamente la carrera de los jinetes es más larga que la de cualquier atleta y más si como hoy en día todo el mundo piensa en mantenerse en forma, es más fácil lograr ser parte de un equipo como el de Estados Unidos por muchos años. Se siente orgulloso específicamente y especialmente de dos alumnas de él, que es Adrian Sternlich, que es de la jinete Cristalín, y de Lily Keenan, que ya han logrado montar en equipos americanos muy importantes. Bueno, Adrian ya fue campeona mundial, así que él cree que, y mencionó también los dos hermanos Porter, y cree que no le preocupa tanto este punto como sí más bien conseguir los buenos caballos para poder montar a los caballos, a los jinetes jóvenes y lograr que el equipo americano siga siendo exitoso. I think you had something to say about that too, Jimmy, about that question about the students of McLain and the Team USA.
Well, you know, yeah, and funny enough, he touched right on too. McLain, the last question. You know, obviously you work very closely with Adrian Sternlich, Lily Keenan, also Lucy Delorier. We left her name out of the mix, but that's three basically top young riders that you're very closely connected with. You know, is it a dream of yours? That would be a proud moment of yours, I would imagine, to ride on a team with these three young ladies. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I was kind of thinking about that at last year's Pan Am Games, and then my horse got hurt. I would have been on that team with Lucy Delorier. You know, I don't think early on that was a dream of mine. I had some success teaching Casey Harrison at that level, though Missy Clark had done most of the work leading up to that. And then, you know, the first real success was with Katie Dinan. She jumped to the Barcelona Nations Cup final. She did some incredible things, won World Cup qualifiers. And we started to kind of figure out the program on how to manage those young riders and carry that over to Adrian Sternlich, who obviously was on the gold medal team with me in Tryon, and now Lily Keenan, who had great training early on from Andre Dignelli, and we're just continuing that story. And a lot of what I do with those young riders is management. You know, they're pretty experienced already, and then I help them on how to put the pieces together to take their riding and their organization to the next level. So I don't know if it was early on a dream of mine, but it's become one now. As you know, Jimmy, I'm very proud and defensive of those girls. I believe in them. I get energy from helping them. I'm inspired by them. They keep me focused and hungry and all of the above. And it's become a huge part of my career and my life. And I think there's some chances, you know, eventually down the road where the argument can be made, you know, what was more of a legacy, the riding or helping those people reach their goals. So I hope the two go hand in hand.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Quería preguntarle algo antes de que conteste Juan.
Sí.
McLain, now that you talk about this, do you see yourself as a chef d'équipe in the future for the USA? Of course, not now, but you know, you're still a long way from your career. But
when he's in his wheelchair,
yeah, you know, I mean, that's going to be the problem. I mean, Jimmy, in a funny way, touches on it. You know, it's something I've you know, for years thought in the back of my mind would be a possible direction to go in later in my life. You know, I think in I have a game plan for how I want the end of my riding career to go in the sport. I won't ride forever. I'm not going to be an Ian Miller, who's still going at it in their 70s. But there's a lot of other parts of the sport that I enjoy being involved in, and mainly, the management and tutelage of other up and coming riders in the United States. So I think as my competitive career as a rider winds down, what I'm doing with people like Katie, Adrian, and Lily will only ratchet up. And to not have a conflict of interest when you're working with riders of that level and being the chef to keep, that's a little bit complicated. So I think the near future after my riding career is done, which is still, I hope, a few Olympics away, would be to go more in that direction of managing these really top talents. If in my retirement years in my 90s, the chef to keep me, I don't want to take it off the table, but I think it would be hard for me to give up really being daily hands-on involved with riders of that like.
Okay. All right, guys, I think we're done. Mauro, are you done with your the other day I left a question out for Mauricio, Jimmy, and he gave me hell about it for a week now with Rodrigo. I didn't see it. So I'm asking you guys if you have any more questions. We're going to go to people's questions. There's the three of them. We don't have too much time.
You didn't translate either of those.
What
Because
now?
my Spanish is getting so good, they understood.
Although
Okay.
I am getting word from some of our viewers that McLain left out when he talked about those up and coming young riders. He left out Lily Ward and JJ Toronto.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
there you go. Hey,
I'm not
and
going to
also
be allowed to retire.
we also, because we didn't mention it, we talked about Lily before, but you had a baby girl not long ago. Congratulations, McLain. That's very good for you. Now we understand why you said that you were now surrounded by women in your life.
Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna go.
Yeah, I'm surrounded by women. I have women horses, women dogs, and Madison and Lily. So
that's perfect. First question, and this is, I have to do this. We have a person. I think I'm breaking up a little bit. Am I okay?
You're breaking up a little bit.
Okay, I can see it now because it's a little unstable. But first question, I have to leave it, and it's my girlfriend, Juliana. She's the one that does all of this. She's the producer, editor. She does everything.
Thank you for all her efforts.
She's also a writer, and she told me for McLain, I'm going to do one of the questions today. So I leave you with her right now.
Sounds great.
Hi, McLain. How are you?
Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice
Hi, how are you? Nice to meet you.
First of all, thank you for being here and having the honor to meet you, of course. And I was wondering, and I just wanted to ask you, of all the championships and shows that you have won, and that you have once dreamt of winning as a child, is there anyone pending or something that you haven't achieved yet?
I don't know the answer to this.
Say that again. Is there a goal that I still would like to achieve? Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
She said all the things you've won. Is there anything that's basically eluded you?
Yeah, there's a lot that's eluded me. There's a whole career that's eluded me.
Only two.
Nah, there's a few more than two. Look, it's an interesting question because I find, and Jimmy knows this, I've talked to him about it. When I wake up in the morning, I think about all the things that I haven't yet won, not the things that I have won, and I think that's a mindset that is important for staying motivated. Yeah, I'd like to win the Olympics individually, and I'd like to win the Aachen Grand Prix. I haven't won Harrisburg yet either, Jimmy. But yeah, I mean, those two are definitely on the bucket list. The Olympic Games, that's got to be the right moment, obviously. But Aachen probably ranks up there with the World Cup finals. It's like the girl I couldn't get a date with. I've beaten around it left and right and banged on the door, and yeah, it eludes me, but I got a few more chances left, I think.
Good. Thank you very much, McLain.
Thank you. Thank you for all your efforts.
Okay, now I can sleep in peace tonight. We're gonna go to a couple more people here. We're gonna have one that's been a regular on the show. We're going to have, I think, Alejandro Alvarado is on the show. He's a young professional here in Colombia. I'm going to give him a minute to think about it because I haven't, these are unprepared. Let's see what he has to say. Alejo? Just a second, guys. Let me see. Juliana is, oh, there you go. I think here. There you go. No, we can't get it.
No, sí.
Yo, Juan.
Alejo, ¿cómo vamos? How are you, man?
But I'm fine, and you?
Good, go ahead. You have a question for McLain? Or Jimmy?
Yes.
Dígale pues lo que teníamos planeado.
Go ahead.
Okay. Hi, guys. How you doing?
How are you?
Okay, I have a question for you, McLain. I know you have bought several horses from Colombia, and we were just wondering, and if you can tell us the horses that you have bought, how were they prepared for the Grand Prix level? The horses that you bought, some were from Colombia, and some were already jumping in the States.
It's a very good question.
Yeah, absolutely. I've bought several horses now that came out of Colombia and came up to the United States to compete. I think that from everything that I hear, you guys have a pretty good system of producing these horses. We talked about the struggles in the United States of producing young horses. It's an economic struggle. It seems to me, from the knowledge that I've received from fellow riders and trainers from your country. How you doing there in the background? You're getting punked there. It seems like you have quite a good system to build the horses up, obviously, to probably meter 50 level. And then, the hurdle for you all is to go to the next level. You typically have to go outside of your country to go up the ranks, right? So we all have our challenges. I've had great success with those horses, been able to purchase them, have some success in moderate level Grand Prix, and then resell them. So I've been very pleased, and I keep always open-minded to horses coming out of your market because of the success I've had in the past.
Okay, thank you very much.
Very good question.
Good luck. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Okay, I'm going to give now, I'm the one that with Mauricio, we did this show, so I'm going to have people, my father is online. He's been with us always, and I'm going to tell you why I'm going to put him on. He had a big influence on me also in my career as a rider. And he was an absolute fan of your father. I remember back in the day, we started doing WEF. We did it for like 8 or 9 years in a row. And he would always say, he was a big fan of your father. So I'm going to let him talk a little bit and see if he has a question or something.
Great.
Listen, McLain, no questions at all. What can I say? Your dad, I was a big fan of him, and like father, like son. I'm a big fan of yours. I think you're the best rider in the world. I don't care, whatever, for me,
thank
you're
you,
the best.
Sir. Thank you, and to say that I'm father like son is the best compliment of all. So
always put America at the top level, like you have. So no questions at all. I admire you so much, and I admire your dad. So
thank you very much, sir.
Keep on, keep it going.
There you go. All right, I just thought that would be fun. We're gonna give one more. Let's see. I would like to hear somehow. We've had people from here. I want to give you somebody that's close, not close to you, but you probably know him. We're gonna get a little bit international here. And Luis Velarrazabal is online. We're gonna give him a question. I think it's an interesting point, just because he's in the States, but he's also a writer that's from Venezuela. He comes a little bit from our background, and I would like to hear something, a question or whatever he has to say. Luis, how are you, man?
Hi, how are you, Juan?
Good, man.
Hi, Luis. How we doing?
Hey, I really appreciate listening to all your thought and your knowledge about all the questions that the people ask. Hi, Lily. How are you?
I got the one with all the expertise here now.
No, one of the questions that I can ask is how you manage to have big horses like you said, Sapphire, Nocheronda, all these mares, big horses that they might look a little bit old sport, kind of, and you keep them so competitive, in that level. Again, these are small horses, and you still beat them, like how you keep them at home. Like, is there any like a specific train that you make for them to keep them like more prepared, more like faster?
Yeah, sorry. I'm moving back to the other room. I had to charge the phone a bit. Look, I wouldn't say that I go out and look for that type like a Nocheronda necessarily or Sapphire. Azure's a very blood. You've been close to Azure. She's a very blood light thoroughbred horse. She just is tall. But for the two with a little less blood, in Ronda and Sapphire, when you live with those horses, to be totally honest, they actually have more blood than their type reveals. They're actually much more sensitive and light when you ride them than maybe you see at first glance. We try to manage their weight, which is a little bit of a struggle with those type of horses because they naturally want to put weight on. We try to keep the work interesting. You can't go in the sand ring and grind away every day with those type of horses. You've got to change venues, do some work out on the roads, on the trails and big fields, keep their interest level up so you can keep their fitness and their cardiovascular energy at prime. The other thing is we don't keep the horses up all of the time. So we pick events that we're going to aim those horses to, and we try to build towards those events and then let the horses down a little bit. But you've got to keep them fit, light, and interested, is what I'd say.
Juan, let me add to that, or at least Sapphire, a lot of people question, she was always a great horse. But a lot of people questioned, could she win Grand Prix? Could she win Grand Prix? And McLain went that one summer. McLain could tell you the year, but he went to Europe and he went on a tear and he won every Grand Prix. And then he went, probably not the same year, but when he won the Masters at Spruce Meadows, he won that class against maybe the fastest horse in the world. It was a 2-horse jump off, McLain on Sapphire and Eric on Hickstead. So, people question, could she win? Is she fast? He won against one of, if not the fastest horse in the world at the time.
You're absolutely right. That's a very good point that you make there, Jimmy.
I think also to come full circle to Luis, we touched on this a little bit earlier in the conversation about, accentuating a horse's strengths to get the most out of a horse. And again, going back to all the horse walks, the discipline, it's all connected, right? So those horses' strengths were they were brave, scopy, they had quality, but brave, scopy, and I'm good with the charger, baby, if you need that. They were brave, scopy, and with very big strides and very trustworthy. So my wife is helping me charge my phone here. So I could, by knowing the least amount of strides and the best angles I could take, I could accentuate their strengths to beat a quicker, type horse.
Okay. All right. We're going to have one more because we know you've been with us for a long time now. There's another young rider from Colombia, McLain. He was actually junior champion this year of Colombia, or last year. And he has a question for you. Mateo Casas, his name. Mateo.
Gracias, Juan. McLain.
Nice to meet you.
Well, nice to meet you. It's an honor to speak with you. You've always been a rider that I look up to. I would like to know, what do you think of the new Olympic format?
Yeah, it's not ideal. It's not what I would have chosen. I preferred the old format, but there was also problems with the old format with the individual, everybody going back to zero. I mean, we pretty much generally felt that a better reflection of an Olympic champion was an accumulative score from the beginning of the competition to the end. The old format, the problem with it was the individual was basically a Grand Prix, right? It was 2 rounds and a jump off if necessary, everybody on zero. So particularly for the countries that weren't in medal contention, let's say by the second round of the Nations Cup, they have to use those rounds as schooling rounds. So there was problems in both formats. And often enough, listen, we were lucky enough to be in a jump off for medals at 2 different Olympics, but, we took another round out of our horses compared to a lot of times the individual medal winners. So I would have preferred to stay with the old format compared to the new format. But it is what it is. I don't think it's going to be a disaster, as some people, spout off as doom and gloom. I think that particularly in Tokyo, you have a brilliant course designer who's going to be able to handle the little bit wider range of levels in a better way. And the other thing people need to remember that, people forget the history of our sport. Until 1980, the Nations Cup of the Olympic Games was 3 riders. So for the majority of Olympic sport in equestrian, it was 3 riders. And the team competition, when in the stadium on the last day, there was no drop score. So, let's see how it goes. Let's give it a chance. Let's see how it sells. I remember when they came up with the format for Barcelona Nations Cup final, people were very skeptical, and it's actually really exciting and it's great sport. So I think let's give it a chance. I don't think it's going to be a disaster. It might sell better. If it doesn't, we can reevaluate for Paris Olympics.
Okay, that's good and interesting point of view. And you talked about a brilliant course designer that's going to do the Tokyo Olympics. We're going to have him on our show. Jimmy, you're more than welcome to be here. McLain also. We're going to have Santiago Varela and Guillermo Jorge next Saturday. We're going to have a local one during the week, and then they're going to be here on Saturday, which I think is going to be an interesting show. Mauro, Jimmy, anything else?
I think we're good. I think it was a good show.
Mauro?
I'd like to say, Juan, to all your viewers out there, I did get the distinct pleasure to come and look at a horse down in your country a couple of years ago, and was blown away by the beauty and just gorgeous landscape, and had a great time. So it was a wonderful moment for me.
McLain, you've been awesome. You've been great. You've been our best guest so far. I think it was really interesting. You really gave us what we wanted, which is inside of your head a little bit. We wanted to pick your head a little bit, and we were able to do that. Mauricio, do you have anything to add? Mauro?
Oh, we lost him. Oh.
We lost him again, I think.
He's muted. He's there, but he's muted.
Because he changed. Hold on a second here. He's had problems today with the connection. Let's see. There you go.
Can you unmute him?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
There you go. There you go.
If I don't give him his comments, he's gonna kill me. He's gonna write me for the whole week.
Yeah, Juan, it's your program. You can do whatever you want, I guess. Guys, you've been very kind. McLain, thank you very much for accepting the invitation. Jimmy, you have been wonderful for the past 2 programs. And now...
We lost him again.
I won an Olympic next year. And now you're not only going to have the U.S. rooting for you, but also Colombia. So good luck.
Well, that's excellent to hear. Thank you. And I appreciate that. It was great to be here. I enjoyed it.
Thank you, McLain. Señores, acuérdense, me monto a ayudar, numeral, me monto a ayudar, la página de la federación. Ayúdenle a la gente que necesita en este momento. Por favor, ayúdenles. McLain, thank you again. Jimmy, I hope we'll see you soon again. Mauro, everybody, you've been awesome. It's been a great show. We'll see you on the next one.
Take care, guys. Yeah,
Thanks,
gracias.
Man. Yep.
Adios.